Okay, it is now 1 o'clock. The election board is present, so I'd like to call us into session. First of all, let's look at the old business. And we'll start with the results of the 2020 primary. Karen, could you give us a report on that, please?
Okay, so we have a total vote of 26,871. And these numbers will change because we have a few, well, we don't have the provisionals and that such, but they're very close. And we had, for early voting, for 1 week, we had 1,981 voters. On election day, we had 7,041. And we had for mail, which is also absentee, 17,849. Lots of mailed ballots. Hi, Sherry.
Okay.
Karen, how many ballots did we send out and how many that didn't come back? Let's put it that way.
So we sent out 23,000 and we got almost 18,000 back. There's also a few that I wouldn't know the numbers on that they got mailed, but they chose to come in and vote anyway at the poll site or election day. So I think the percentage was really high considering.
And do we know how many were spoiled because they came in after noon on election day?
No exact number, but stack maybe about that big.
Okay.
Which isn't too bad. And that was mailed, came in late.
Yeah.
Maybe I had a few more than that.
Okay. I want to get with you sometime to look at how many of those were postmarked before noon, but came in after noon. Just so we have that statistic somewhere.
True. We had some though that actually had the postmark before the deadline, before the election, but we didn't get them. In fact, we got some today. Mm-hmm. Some today that were postmarked that they should have been here, but we didn't get them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the law is pretty clear on that. Anything that isn't received by noon on election day at Election Central is not and cannot be counted.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Do you have any other thoughts about poll attendance?
I think we were successful in keeping the numbers down at the poll. We had, what did I say? Just a little over 7,000 at 7 poll sites. That's 1,000 people at each poll site on an average. And that, considering how many precincts we had at some of them, that was a really helpful thing for us in that it worked well. So the mail took over there and did its job, what it was supposed to do in regards to that.
Yeah. Okay. We had 2 pieces of fan mail that came in as emails to me as a result of the election. One of those people is online now. I don't know if he wants to speak or not, and that's Ralph Shaw. Did you want to make a comment, Mr. Shaw? You're on mute.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, thank you. I will then share that email with the election board and Election Central so you can share it with your staff. It was, I think generally the public received us positively. I haven't had any overtly negative comments. Has anyone else received any on the election setup or the election process or the election itself?
Apart from the one person who said it was about time that we got them the results, that's the only negative that I've heard.
Yeah, but we kind of warned people that it was going to be a tough stretch to get it on Tuesday night. So it wasn't like a surprise to anybody.
Correct.
I got a call from, right now I can't remember if it was a worker, I think it was, or somebody who voted at City Church. I think it was a worker. I still have the call. I can check on it, but totally happy, total compliments of how it was run, the procedures, the people, the system. She couldn't have given, I mean, it was like probably a 2-minute compliment, you know, so it was very nice. And it was nice that you spent the time to call, because usually the calls we get are people who are upset.
Yeah.
So we don't get a lot of compliments. We've had a few. We got notes in the mail, you know, maybe a dozen, half a dozen, saying, you know, thank you for your time. Thank you for sending this out. Thank you for working. So we do get those, but
Mhm. Okay, would you share those with the election board? The emails that you got?
the big one was a phone call.
Mhm.
I probably could send that because I have it saved. Yeah.
Okay, and
In
Randy,
addition, can
yeah,
you hear me, Hal?
yes,
Can
yes.
you hear? Okay. In addition, I've received a couple of emails from poll workers who said they wanted to get together and share information. I haven't gotten specific feedback yet. However, we always, and of course I'll share whatever I receive from those two individuals, but we always send out surveys to all poll workers requesting all feedback they choose to share with us so that we can, and we get helpful information for improvement, things that work well, things that, you know, we are given ideas for aspects to rethink, hopefully in the future.
Mhm.
So that's a standard that we always do, and that'll be going out in the next few days.
Okay, great, great.
And this-
Randy
Nicole,
Paul. I'm sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
that's okay. And Ms. Sherry is incredibly diligent about getting those surveys out, and we do take those very, very seriously. I'd like to request that if she is willing, have us plan to put that on the agenda for her to share a synopsis of that feedback at next month's meeting. And I also, for the person who said it's about time with respect to the results, we were not the only Indiana county to delay the results by a day and get them out. Today, a lot of the clerks are emailing back and forth. It normally happens election night, but it's happening today that they're just kind of checking in and saying, here's, excuse me, how many, you know, what percentage voted, what kind of issues we had at the polls. And there were counties that had as few as 15% of their or registered voters to turn out. I feel very lucky that we had, you know, just under 30,000 people vote, 26,701. So, you know, I think we did really well in Monroe County. I'm incredibly proud of the job that we did, but we were not the only Indiana county to not turn out results on election night. Thank you.
Mhm.
Not by a long shot.
Randy Paul.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yep, can hear you fine.
Well, Nicole, you should be proud of the results, but you also should be proud of your team as far as the Help America Vote Act. You know, a few weeks ago, it looked like it was going to get kind of ugly, and things just turned out, I think, extremely well. I received recordings when the team went out to look at the sites, so I heard their discussions, I heard their recommendations, I made suggestions. I frankly could not see it have been done any better. And what struck me was this was more than just people going through a checklist. These were people talking about how do we make these polling sites better. We talk sometimes about the spirit of the law versus the letter. The spirit of the law was reached above and beyond my expectations. So I particularly want to thank you, Nicole, and you know, to recognize Tree Martin for all the work she did. And I know she was one of several people, but she certainly led the mark. The other thing that was pretty telling is I just happened to send a list of talking points, because part of this process was to have people available to help anybody with a disability. And I thought, in the training I've done in the past, I've noticed people are somewhat hesitant about what to say or what to do when approaching someone with a disability. And I sent just kind of a tip sheet as far as what people could do and say. For example, if somebody sees somebody, a voter who's visually impaired, what do you say to them? How do you approach them? What do you do to help? And I was just really surprised at the reaction I got from that. I got from the clerk's office and Tree just how much they were training people and implementing that. So I think that's really important to recognize. And I think it's also, hopefully the learning lesson here is that on something like the Help America Vote Act, the ADA, you know, if we don't view it as one side versus another and just simply view it as how can we get this done to the betterment of people who need the help, I think in this case we showed we could do it. We did it well. We also did it, I believe, without spending any new money. So it doesn't always have to cost money to get this done. So congrats to everybody involved. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Oh,
Thank
sorry.
you, Randy. Thank you, Randy.
One last point along the disability lines, and I've been going around to public meetings talking to everybody about it, so I don't leave you guys out. And that's what happens when this pandemic either loosens up or is over. What happens to public meetings that are being done on Zoom? And I've been encouraging people and committees and boards to continue the process to allow Zoom meetings, particularly even once you're meeting in person, for those of us with disabilities, so we still have access to public meetings. I've been reading on the ADA a lot because of the work we've been doing. I've read the recent 2018 regulations, and while they don't say, you know, governments need to do Zoom meetings, there's a lot of emphasis on governments providing access for people to get to and access meetings and services. And part of the problem, I looked at the census in 2010. They were estimating just in the city, I didn't look at the county yet, but there's roughly 85,000 people. 8% of those people are disabled. So you're looking at roughly 7,000 people that are declaring that they have a disability. I don't know how many of them can or cannot get to a public meeting. I know I'm one of them. So I hope it doesn't take a pandemic to allow access for those people with disabilities. I hope it's not a crisis only situation. I've gone meeting to meeting. The only commitment I've got right now is the CCA, which is the Council for Community Accessibility. And of course they're going to, because that's their job. So I hope you guys would consider it. I hope you would consider some kind of access. Zoom, you've obviously been able to do. But I think it's important to provide access to everybody. I think there's a strong argument to be made, one that I certainly am going to try to make, that the ADA actually addresses this. So think about it, and I hope in the future you continue to do meetings on Zoom or something like it. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Okay.
you, Randy, and,
Yeah.
and thanks for all the help that you've given us. I would say that the one comment I'd make, Hal and I went out and viewed all of the polling sites during the afternoon of Tuesday. The one issue that we did have was at Grandview. We had a ramp for wheelchairs, but there's a little curb lip there. And a couple people had fallen on that. So they actually just coned that off and everybody used the ramp, which I think worked. But that's something we'll need to address at that site in the future. One of the suggestions was just to either paint the curb, or I thought we could maybe just even duct tape that curb so that it's visible. It's one of those situations, especially when light is low, that people just don't see that curb and then trip over it. So other than that, I thought the sites worked really well.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. You know, and I just one other point is that I'm looking forward to working with you guys for the fall election, because it's going to be a little more challenging because we're going to have more, I assume, we're going to have more voting sites. So
Yeah, we really don't know how many sites we'll have in the fall, because it's all up to the state election commission.
Right.
Okay, great. Any other comments on the attendance of the poll, or the poll process, or the voting process? All right. Again, I thought it was terrific. I was really charged up. I was uplifted by the results I saw when Carolyn and I went around and looked at each site, and we saw that there were orderly processions through the voting process, and they all maintained social distancing. Many of them, most of them, wore masks. Those who didn't bring a mask were given a mask. Most of the poll workers had masks and or shields on, so they were well protected. Biggest problem we found was that people tended to leave their driver's licenses behind.
Yeah.
But I think we got that taken care of. And that's something that I'm sure Sherry's going to have the trainers bone up on before the next process to make sure that those cards don't get left behind. Okay.
Yeah. One last comment,
Yeah.
Hal. I just wanted to say on the mask issue, I wanted to thank Monroe County government. Of course, we got masks from the state and people who asked for them were given those masks. But the Monroe County government and the commissioners also sort of organized people to hand out masks to those who wanted them outside the polls. So I would like to thank especially Penny Githens, but the rest of the commissioners as well for arranging for that to happen as well.
Absolutely. That was a terrific thing. I think the whole process, including handing out masks at the beginning, took the people who tended to be nervous about crowds and took that to the absolute minimum. Really reduced the tension for people in dealing in a potentially crowded situation. So I want to thank everyone, including the county government and all of the volunteers for doing what they could to make people feel comfortable. And who knows, this might have a positive effect on in-person voting in the fall. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, if there's no more discussion on the election day and the poll attendance, then let's move to the new election calendar. What do we have on tap, Karen?
Things that are to the future.
Yeah. Election deadlines, paperwork.
Gosh,
I caught you, huh? Sorry.
yes, you did.
Okay.
And I didn't make my usual calendar either, but we will mention, let's start with the provisional ballot review, which will happen next Friday. It's 10 days from the election. We will, I'm presuming, meet at Election Central as we have in the past, because it gives us access to the computers and all the things that we need to review if we have a provisional ballot that we're questioning or need to review information on. So there's that. Of course, there's Election Day coming up in November. And there are some
forget-
deadlines for people to be added to the ballot. And I don't remember exactly what the last day for that is because it's changed also. Is it July 1st now, Karen? I'd have to look it up. But there's a period of time when the parties
Wow.
can add people to the ballot in races where they don't have a candidate. And that deadline will come up in July.
Mhm.
Well, voter registration will open on Tuesday, June 16th. That will give us a new direction there too of getting all those registrations that we received at the poll sites and such.
Okay. Yeah. Dates are very important. We had one person show up at Election Central the day after the election wanting to vote. So I thought we did an admirable job of getting the message out on dates, but I don't know. I have to find out what media that person was looking at because they didn't get it.
No. So June 30th is the deadline for a candidate to fill a vacancy on the general election ballot.
Okay.
For the Democrats and the Republicans, also for independent or minor parties. Also, the Libertarian Party to conduct a convention to nominate candidates to take action to fill a ballot vacancy also.
Okay. Any other comments on the election calendar?
The only thing that I will ask is that if the board would consider beginning our meeting at 12:01, because I imagine we will have a significant amount of provisional ballots to review, and we have a deadline. I believe it's 3:30. Check me on that, Miss Carolyn.
It's 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, yeah.
3 o'clock.
Okay.
The guesstimate
can-
was around 50 provisional ballots, but we don't have the exact number in hand.
Actually, I think it's less than that. So we may have 25 or 30, 25 to 35, let's say.
Yeah, they're in a sealed bag and we can't open it until Friday. So we don't know exactly what that number is right now, but if 12 o'clock is, or 12:01 is too late, well, actually we have to start after noon.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The citizens who filed provisional ballots have until noon on Friday to correct whatever the reason was that they had to
Yep.
vote provisional, so that
Yep.
they didn't have ID or so forth.
yeah,
So we can meet 1 minute after that.
okay. 12:01 is fine with me. And
Do we need a motion to that effect? I believe we do. So I will make the motion that we start the provisional ballot count at 12:01 on Friday. Let's see.
June 12th.
June 12th.
12th.
I will
Okay.
second the motion.
okay, all those in favor?
We have to do
Aye.
a roll call.
Yeah, okay, all right. Nicole,
Nicole says aye.
Carolyn,
Carolyn says aye.
okay, and Hal says aye. So it's unanimous. We will have a meeting starting at 12:01 on Friday to discuss provisional ballots. All right. Were there any outstanding site and logistical problems that we noticed during the election, including issues related to absentee voting?
None
Nicole?
of which I am aware.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I would guess that the only major logistical problem that I can think of is the fact that people didn't understand the deadlines.
Yeah.
So many deadlines are postmarked by, but the law says received by. So we had a number of applications that came in after the 21st deadline. We had a number of ballots, I think, that arrived after the deadline on the 2nd at noon, because people are ingrained in, well, if I just mail it on the 21st, it will come in on time, or it will be accounted. And unfortunately, the law states that the applications have to be received by the election division on such a date. The ballots had to be in by noon on June 2nd. And I do believe that some people were confused to that effect.
yeah. And unfortunately, that is law and we can't make any exceptions to it. No matter what the good intent was on the person's part to participate in this, we're all too good looking to go to jail. So
Thank you.
we have to stick to the deadlines.
I
Okay.
think logistically, I mean, we want to talk about early voting, or well, actually, the procedure with the mailed ballots. We were overwhelmed on every level of trying to produce, getting out those 23,000 mailed ballots.
Initially overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yes, if we didn't have community correction that was on furloughed, and they were very willing to lend us, I thought it was kind of ironic because, we've always talked about we want the whole building. If we couldn't have the whole building, we wanted the whole bottom floor. Well, this time we got the whole bottom floor. It wasn't really planned, but we got it.
Yeah, at least for that period of time. Yeah.
Yes, and we used pretty much every inch of that. And I do not know what we would have done if we hadn't gotten that. And also the logistics of having our renovation done, that was, we wouldn't have had an ability to have early voting and social distancing. We were still very limited, but we made it work, and it actually turned out well. But it would not have happened without that having done. So the commissioners, thank God for the commissioners that they agreed for that, and it got done in February. I think we finished up, not knowing that we were going to have all this, or it was the end of March or January. I can't really remember for sure. Everything starts to run together now, but
yeah.
So those were really, really big things that helped us, but we don't know if we'll have that ability in the fall. And even if we did, I don't believe we could make this happen again if it doubled, and that could happen. I just That really scares me.
I would expect a robust turnout in the fall, either
Yes.
absentee or in person. So we'll have to plan accordingly based on that. Nicole, is it your office that calculates the final expenses for all of the election process?
Yes, it is. But we will still have some additional bills coming in right now. So please give me a bit of time to get a budget together. I actually had already sent a request to my liaison for the clerk's office to have a lunch meeting regarding the money, because I anticipate having to appear to ask for additional appropriations between now and the general. And then also to talk about the significant issues if we should be facing a bigger issue than this with a second wave of the coronavirus, that we would have logistical issues and financial issues. And so I need a little bit of sleep and to get those provisional ballots reconciled. But then he has agreed to meet with me, and then I will be looking for advocates, because I'll have to go before the commissioners and go before the council. I don't feel I should or would have to beg for additional appropriations. None of us could have foreseen this, but I certainly don't want pushback or backlash for having to ask for additional resources, because the election is, by the Constitution, has to happen when it has to happen.
One comment I would make is that, we sent out 23,000 ballots. We probably sent out 15,000 of those in the last week. So a big kudos to the election office, and especially to Tina and to Laramie and Karen and her staff, and also to some of the staff from the clerk's office who came in and helped, and a few citizens who also gave up their Memorial Day weekend to get those last ballots out. I mean, it was an incredible procedure. But the comment is that you don't have to wait to file the application. If we are doing an mostly by mail election again in the fall because of coronavirus or whatever is happening, applying for that application early doesn't affect anything. You don't actually have to vote or make your decision on your ballot until later, because the ballot roster isn't going to change once those deadlines are set and so forth. The ballot stays the same. So apply early, get the ballot. If you want to wait and see what's happening because things happen, and vote in the last couple of weeks, that's fine, but get your application in early.
Also, a lot of people who did do that are 65 years and older, and they don't need to wait to find out if we're going to have a no reason application. Exactly. So if you're 65 and older, it's great to vote by mail no matter what.
Yeah.
And you can file that application tomorrow.
Yes, you can.
Okay. Anything else dealing with site and logistical problems?
Actually, one other comment, Karen. My understanding is that the application online for the absentee by mail is going to remain. It wasn't just for this primary. Is that correct?
The ones that we have online say primary. So, but there is.
I mean, as far as the state's planning to keep that online application as a going concern. They're not going to, that wasn't just set up for this primary, correct?
Are you talking about indianavoters.com that you can do
Correct.
it on? I don't have that answer for sure.
I would hope they would.
I would hope so too, but I don't.
Once we give a right to people, it's hard to take it away.
Right. I would guess it is, but I don't know that fact.
And I do know that there's some logistical problems that they had that they probably are going to tweak, but that if that stays up, I think that will make life a lot easier for many citizens.
We want it to stay up, but I don't know if that helps or not. It helps us tremendously.
Well, if we ask the Secretary of State's office to keep it, if enough people make that request, then I think that does have some effect. So,
And I think what Hal's saying is true too. Once it's been given, it's hard to take it away. And they did all the work. So I can't imagine them to taking it away. But I don't know if we'll have the no excuse. I don't think anybody knows that one yet.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was specifically only for this primary, and they haven't made that decision for that.
Correct.
But I'm
Yeah.
hoping that at least the online application process stays, because it will make it a lot easier for people to do that rather than having to print out forms and mail them and so forth. So,
Mhm.
and I think it's also easier for our staff because less chance of mistakes of, with addresses and so forth. So it would be
It's-
nice if that stayed.
It's much easier on our end. It's much easier on our end. And actually, it's pretty easy on the other end too, once they get it figured out. I mean, some people had a problem with it, but overall, we got a lot of them. A lot of people liked it.
Okay. Any more comments concerning the primary election before we move on?
Okay, I have one thing that you, as the election board, need to okay. It's
Okay.
kind of strange when we're here on Zoom, but I just have the incomplete registrations that people try to register, and we get to a certain time, like 10 days before, then we have to, if they have certain things, they can have it filled in up till 10 days, but these did not do it. I only have 15. And so if you guys just would agree that you're going to accept these as incomplete, then we can just take them out of the system, file them away for 2 years, and then hopefully they will re-register. But they were,
Okay. The people have been notified that they are incomplete.
to our best abilities, some of these people we can't get a hold of.
Okay.
We've tried to send them a letter, but some of them don't have a complete address. Some of them don't have a phone number and they don't have an email. Or we have sent them and they haven't responded. So it's a
Okay.
combination, but it's only 15.
Okay. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the
I will
motion.
make the motion.
Or Nicole, you can make the motion,
I'll make the motion.
and I will second it.
All right. All those in favor, state your name.
Carolyn Vanderwell, aye.
Nicole Brown, aye.
Hal Turner, aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, just a reminder to everybody, if you made those changes on your voter registration when you came in to vote, or you applied but didn't apply for your voter registration in time, go to indianavoters.com sometime after, maybe a few weeks after the 16th, to give us time to make those changes and make sure that everything went through correctly, and make sure that you're registered for November.
Okay. So we'll move on from the primary elections. We will now discuss some issues related to the 2020 fall election. The first issue that we're carrying over from that on old business was the Ellettsville voting location, Edgewood or City Hall. Carolyn and I both visited the City Hall.
To be correct, it's the
Yes.
town hall.
Town Hall. Okay. I'm sorry. We both visited the town hall and examined the entrance and exit from there. And imagining what it could be like during rush hour, it may be problematic, but what we are going to do some additional investigation of that to determine whether that will be an actual issue during voting time and high traffic periods or not. We'll probably ask a number of different people to try that during those times to give us their impression of what that turn did as far as creating any difficulties or concerns for the drivers. And with that information, then we'll be able to decide whether we have the option of getting some traffic assistance, or whether, if the traffic assistance is not possible, whether we go with those concerns or whether we stay at the high school. So we'll make that consideration in the next few months. Any discussion on the Ellettsville voting site? Okay,
We may need to wait a little while to deal with traffic, because traffic right now, of course, is still pretty slow.
yeah, Yep.
So,
understood.
Randy?
Yeah, and
Randy?
the only,
Yeah.
you know, we've talked about this before. The concern that we've always had with schools being used is when the problem comes in is when you have kids either being dropped off in the morning or picked up in the afternoon. It will interfere with accessible parking, and that's why all things equal, if you can get away from school as much as you can, I think it'd be beneficial for everybody. So if this other site, the town hall, can be worked with, is a much better choice than having a school be a polling site.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the issue in Ellisville is that RBB schools are open on election day, MCCSC schools are not. And so we have that problem with buses and kids and all the other issues at the school. So that's one of the concerns and one of the reasons that I think that Principal Ackerman has asked us to move the site. But again, we need a large site, and the Edgewood School is a lot larger than Town Hall, though Town Hall is a pretty good size. There may be some ramifications again this year that maybe aren't going to be happening from, in 2 years from now when we have our next election. So those are all things we'll take into consideration for this November, and then for situations going further. Plus, the 22 election will be, we'll have had redistricting, we'll have different numbers of people in different precincts, and that's going to come into effect as well.
But again, if I could, the Help America Vote Act is a law that doesn't go away with schools being open or not open. The issue you're going to have to deal with is if you have it at the high school, you're going to have to come up with some way to accommodate people who are going to come in to vote when kids are being dropped off or picked back up, and it's going to interfere with accessible parking.
Yes, but what I said was that's only an issue at Richland Bean Blossom schools, because MCCSC schools are not open on election day.
Right. All I'm saying is Help America Vote Act applies there also. You're going to have a problem with HAVA on this. And that's why back in 2012, even when schools were open, we decided we weren't going to use schools. And I think you're going to have a real problem with the ADA if you have schools. And that's not whether it's in Ellisville or in Bloomington. It's just going to be a problem, and you got to deal with that.
It's one of the problems we have to deal with. The other problem is the volume of people has to fit the potential volume capacity of the place where we do the voting. So we've got to balance all these things. I understand the law is the law, and we have to do our best to accommodate everyone in this situation. So give us time to do our analysis, and we'll keep you in the loop on that, Randy, so that you know what's going on, and we appreciate your input on this. We know that you're going to be with us right through the summer as we do our analysis, and we'll make sure that you're an active part of the loop on this. All right?
Yeah. I don't want to wreck the good mood we're in right now, so let's deal with it later.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Any other issues related to Ellisville voting? All right. We know that the state is going to be making some decisions that will affect us in the fall. And right now, we don't have any indication what those decisions will be, other than the trend is to open up the state in general, section by section, level by level, as we try to free ourselves from the shutdown. We'll just have to see what happens if we get any spikes. We'll have to be fleet of foot, and we'll have to make sure that the plans we've made cover all contingencies so that we can react quickly as the state makes their decisions. Anyone else want to chime in on this issue?
I do. This is Nicole.
Yeah.
I do, just because typically when we would have this meeting, I would be preparing to go to Indianapolis for the annual Clerks Association conference, which is typically a 3-day conference, and we all come together and we are made aware of changes at that time. as you can imagine, there will be no annual clerks conference. And right now, as I understand it, there will not be a fall conference, which would be the last chance for me to get information that I could share with you regarding upcoming changes for the fall election. So all that I can do is say that as information is passed to me by the officers of the Clerks Association, I am happy to pass them along. The only thing that they are talking about right now doesn't impact you all. They're talking about a December conference to say goodbye to outgoing clerks and welcome in newly elected clerks. So I will just keep you abreast. I know that they are already asking about people on the legislative committee for the Clerks Association. And so as we meet in Indianapolis, if I have anything that impacts elections, I will make the board aware.
Great. We appreciate that. We have the utmost confidence that the clerk's office will keep us informed as we go through the summer of decisions.
And my
Absolutely.
guess is the Secretary of State's office is looking at what happened now before they start deciding about what's going to happen later. But hopefully they will make those decisions in a timely fashion and not give us a month to get prepared again.
Hopefully. Okay. Finally, in old business, we will be reviewing all the fall potential sites with an eye on the state making or not making a decision about changing the way we do the fall as opposed to the spring. So that's kind of an open issue. We'll review this on an ongoing basis at each meeting to let the public know what's happening and what direction we think the fall election will be going. Again, as Carolyn said, we're hoping we're going to get the information sooner, but we have to be prepared in case the state gives us the information later. So we'll be planning for all the contingencies we can. Is there any other old business that needs to be brought up? Okay. Hearing no more old business, we'll carry on with new business. First of all, under old business, are there any comments from anyone who is not on the election board?
Don't forget to unmute yourself.
All right, we'll move on to new business then.
Sorry,
We really, yes.
This is Dave Askins with the B-Square Beacon. I was slow on the draw there. Just a quick question. Karen Wheeler mentioned that there were a certain number of ballots that came in after noon, and she held up her hands to indicate about the size of the stack, and I did not have my screen open at that time. I was only listening to the audio, and so I was wondering if she could hold her hands apart at the same distance she did before.
How about that? How about that?
Perfect. Thank you.
We heard that click.
Yeah, I appreciate your indulging me. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I have no new business to cover here. Does the board or the clerk's office or Election Central have any additional new business to discuss?
Other than I want to, this is Nicole. I'd like to thank Mr. Paul for his comments. I'm incredibly blessed and fortunate to know every day what an incredible group of people I get to work with. And I am never too proud to say that the smartest decision I've ever made as clerk was asking Tree Martin to be my chief deputy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any other comments from listeners? Last call. Being no other comments from the board or listeners, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion that we adjourn.
I will second the motion.
All those in favor indicate your name and your vote.
Carolyn Vanderly, aye.
Nicole Brown, aye.
Hal Turner, aye. Okay, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.